Karen's eyes darted wildly as her face twisted into a mask of disbelief. Her grip on the clipboard trembled, and her rhinestone visor reflected the intense sunlight like a shard of broken glass. She stared at me, then at the gate, then at the garden gnome she clutched like a weapon. The silence stretched, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, until finally she managed a strangled whisper. You can't do this," she stammered, voice cracking, remained calm, watching her flail. My coffee mug still sat in my hand untouched as I looked her dead in the eyes. "Karen, I told you that gate isn't yours, it's on my land and I own it. You've been sneaking through it for weeks and I've had enough." Her face twitched again, like a puppet with a loose string, before she suddenly lowered her voice, eyes narrowing. That's not possible. The HOA isn't in charge here." I cut her off smoothly. "I am. And I don't appreciate you trespassing or bringing your little garden gnome to threaten me." She blinked, stunned, then looked down at her knuckles, clutching the gnome so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her cheeks flushed crimson as she realized she was cornered, yet her stubbornness hadn't faded. 2 weeks earlier, I'd moved into this oddly shaped property tucked behind a high-end neighborhood. The real estate agent called it a hidden gem, a private lot with a pool and a tiny house, surrounded by a strip of land that belonged to me, legally, undeniably mine. But the neighbors, especially Karen, had other ideas. I remembered the first encounter vividly. She'd waved her clipboard like a sword, barking about community standards, and I told her I wasn't in the HOA. Her smile, thin and sharp, had promised trouble. Then came the inspections, the fines over garden furniture, and her reaching over my fence to scrutinize my solar heater like it was a forbidden relic. Today was the culmination. She'd stormed through the back gate, waving her clipboard and pointing her pen at my nephew on the pool noodle. Her voice was shrill, demanding. I hand over the gate key immediately. "You need to understand," I said, voice even but firm. "This land isn't part of your HOA. That gate? It's on my property. You've been using it without permission." She opened her mouth again, but no words came, only a frustrated gasp, like a Windows XP error message frozen in human form. Then, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the property deed, the official map and the parcel survey I'd ordered last week. I unfolded the legal documents and held them out to her. "Look at this. The boundary line is clear. Everything behind that gate belongs to me. The strip, the pathway, the access. It's all part of my land." Her eyes flicked over the documents and her jaw tightened. "That's not right," she whispered, voice trembling. "That map is wrong." "No, Karen," I said softly. "It's the truth. I called the county. The boundary lines are legal, official, and unchangeable." She looked at the map, then at the gate, then back at me. Her face drained of color and her grip on the gnome loosened. "So, you're saying I can't use that gate anymore?" "Exactly," I replied. "And I suggest you ask permission before crossing onto my property again." That's when her face twisted into a fury I'd never seen before. Her mouth opened, but only a string of incoherent words spilled out. She looked like she was about to shout. Then suddenly her eyes flashed with a dangerous idea. "I'll see you at the next HOA meeting," she snapped, voice sharp as a knife. "This isn't over." Then she turned and stormed off, her heels pounding the pavement as she clutched her clipboard and gnome, her weapon like a shield. I watched her go, feeling a strange sense of calm. The battle lines had been drawn and I'd finally taken a stand. It was more than just a property dispute. It was about respect, ownership, and the truth. And I knew she wouldn't give up easily, but I also knew I had something she didn't. Proof. And that proof was about to change everything. Karen's eyes widened in pure shock as she stared at the documents I held out. Her hand, still clutching that ridiculous garden gnome, trembled uncontrollably. She looked from the deed to the map, then back at me, as if trying to find a way to deny what was staring her dead in the face. But there was no denying it now. You can't be serious," she stammered, voice cracking. "That map is official," I interrupted calmly. "From the county. Your HOA's map doesn't matter here. This land belongs to me, and I've got the paperwork to prove it. Her face turned a shade paler. The rage that had been simmering beneath her eyes now flickered like a dying flame. She clenched her fists so tight her knuckles turned white, but no words came. Just a shaky breath, then her eyes darted around, searching for an escape route. Could see her mind racing, trying to think of her next move. But she was cornered. Her bluff had been called. Her grip on the gnome loosened, and she slowly lowered her hand. Her voice was barely more than a whisper, filled with a strange mixture of anger and fear. "This isn't over," she muttered, eyes narrowing. "You think you've won, but—" "Karen," I cut her off again, voice steady. "You've been trespassing for weeks. That gate isn't yours. You had no right to come onto my property. And now I've got proof." She looked like she wanted to scream, but all that escaped was a choked gasp. Her face twisted again, as if she were trying to hold herself together. But I saw her hands trembling, the flicker of panic in her eyes. Then, suddenly, her shoulders sagged. Her bravado crumbled just enough for her to realize she was beaten. She took a step back, her eyes locking onto mine one last time, like she was trying to burn this moment into her memory. I stayed perfectly still, watching her retreat. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, until she finally turned and stormed away, her heels clicking furiously on the pavement. Her figure disappeared around the corner, leaving behind only the faint scent of desperation. I lowered the documents and exhaled slowly. This wasn't just about a gate or a property line. It was about standing my ground, about knowing the truth no matter how long it took to prove it, and I could feel it in my bones. This was only the beginning. The real fight was just starting. Karen's scream echoed through the yard as her car peeled out of the driveway, tires spinning on the gravel in a desperate attempt to escape. I watched her vanish into the distance, the dust cloud behind her like a banner of defeat. The police had just left, shaking their heads and warning her about filing false reports. The video footage I'd captured was undeniable, proof of her trespassing, vandalism, and her attempt to break into my gate. In that moment, I felt a strange calm settle over me, like the storm had finally passed. But I knew better. Karen wasn't just going to disappear quietly. She was too stubborn, too obsessed. I had prepared for that. As the last of her taillights disappeared, I turned to face the yard, my yard, and saw the aftermath of her rage. The gate was bent, the lock mangled, and her footprints crisscrossed the lawn like a predator stalking prey. But I had already called the authorities and filed the reports, and more importantly, I had the evidence that would bury her. Then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed. I hesitated, then pulled it out. A message flashed on the screen. "You think you've won, but I'm still here." My heart skipped. I looked around, but the yard was quiet now, silent except for the faint hum of the neighborhood. I checked the camera feed. Nothing. No movement. No sign of her. Until I saw it. A shadow moved along the fence line, small, quick, almost too quick to catch. My breath caught in my throat. I zoomed in. It was her. Karen. Standing across the street, hidden behind a cluster of bushes, watching my house. Her eyes glinted in the dawn light, and she held something in her hand, something small and shiny. My pulse quickened. Had she come back? Was she planning something else? I reached for the walkie-talkie I kept nearby, about to call the cops again when my doorbell rang. No warning, no knock, just the sharp chime. I froze, then slowly moved to the door, peered through the peephole. Standing outside was a man in a plain suit holding a small package. No badge, no explanation. Just there. I hesitated. Then, quietly, I opened the door, just enough to see him better. "Are you Mason?" he asked softly. "Yes." "Who are you?" He smiled faintly. "I'm with a private investigator. We've been watching Karen for months. We know what she's capable of." My eyes widened. "What do you mean?" He handed me the small package. Inside is evidence she's been secretly recording you, hacking your devices and even trying to manipulate the neighborhood's perception of you. She's been planning something worse, something you won't see coming. My fingers trembled as I took the package. I peeled back the tape and opened it. Inside was a flash drive. I plugged it into my laptop. The files were shocking. Hidden recordings of her plotting, confessions of her obsession with controlling me, and even a list of neighbors she'd been blackmailing or intimidating. But worst of all, there was a video. I clicked play. It was her, standing in my backyard, hidden behind the bushes, filming me in secret, whispering into her phone. Her voice was low, sinister. Soon, he'll be out of the way. Then I'll finally take control of the whole neighborhood. My stomach clenched. I looked at the investigator. How long has she been doing this? Months, he said grimly. She's not just a petty tyrant. She's dangerous, and now she's desperate. Suddenly my phone buzzed again, a new message. You think you've exposed me? I've already won. I stared. The screen flickered, then went dead. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I knew then, this wasn't over, not even close. Because in that moment I realized the real battle had only just begun. And the final twist? Karen hadn't just been watching me. She'd been planning to disappear, maybe for good, while making it look like I was the villain. And now she was coming back, not just for control, but for revenge. I closed my laptop, feeling the weight of her obsession pressing down. I had the evidence, I had the truth, but I also knew she was unpredictable, and she might come back with everything she had. The question was, would I be ready? Or would her final move be the one that finally shattered everything I'd fought? For because some battles aren't just fought with words or papers. They're fought in the shadows, and sometimes the darkness is waiting to strike again.